Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the main channel. Today we are gonna be uh, discussing slash reviewing a little bit of Yakuza Like a Dragon. So I'm not done with the game. This is just my show you play this game, and the reason why I'm doing this so late is because I recently just picked up this game, maybe about a couple days ago, maybe about a week ago or so. So this is my initial impressions, like thoughts on it. I only played about 20 hours of the game so far, so I'm definitely not done with it, but I played a big chunk of the game and I can tell you my impressions on it, what I think about it. This is actually my first time playing a Yakuza game. I've known about the series for a long time, and several of you guys have actually told me to play the games. However, because of my schedule with my job and a lot of different stuff, I'm very limited as what I can play and what I can do and everything like that. So once I actually finished every single game that I had planned for this year in 2020, I figured I'll give it a chance. I'm very excited to check it out. I'm very excited to talk about it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So we're gonna start with a little bit of the story about Yakuza Like a Dragon. So this is the 7th installment. However, this is its own story. It looks like it does take place in the same universe. However, it does have new characters and new stuff, even though there are some references to the other one, which I don't know any of the references. I'm just saying what I'm being told about it. But the game takes place in Japan, obviously, within a particular family of the Yakuza. Main character Ichiban is actually somebody that was born on the streets. He was born, with nothing and everything, and he was picked up by this guy, Mr. Arazaka, who kind of brought him up, and he kind of joined the Yakuza that way. It's a really interesting story because overall, once you actually go into the story, what you think is gonna happen, it actually just goes in the complete opposite direction, a complete direction that I didn't think about. Ichiban, the main character, is a really interesting character because he's a really good person. When you think of a Yakuza, you think of like this rough man that, they're obviously the mafia and they do bad things and everything, but he believes in this like honor and family, and it's like he has really interesting concept of what he thinks a Yakuza should be. And every time that he encounters other Yakuza, other mafia or other things, his point of view gets conflicted with what he's seeing because it's completely different from what he believes and everything. Overall, that really impacted me because seeing a character like Ichiban, who is like really rough, and he fights, obviously he's a Yakuza and everything, but at the same time he's somebody that believes in like friendship and like all this different stuff and everything. It's really interesting to see that dynamic. There's a really colorful cast of characters that you meet and that they join your party and everything like that, and all of them are really interesting. They all have a really different background. For example, one of them is just a homeless man who used to be a nurse. There's this girl who is a bartender, he joins you as well. There's a police officer. So all these people that have like almost no connection with him whatsoever, and they live in completely different worlds. They are able to kind of go in together and kind of form a party and everything. There's a lot of references to RPGs, and especially Dragon Quest, obviously, because the main character Ichiban, he's a huge fan of Dragon Quest, and over the story he makes a lot of reference and everything. But the world itself is set up in a really interesting RPG environment, which is, if you ever played RPGs like Final Fantasy or Persona, you can see a lot of these elements sprinkled here and there, and it's almost like something fun to see. Whenever I see something that I know from another game, from like Final Fantasy, for example, or Persona, I'm like, oh my god, this is literally from Persona, or this is from Final Fantasy, or this is from this game. Obviously Dragon Quest as well. I know these elements are really interesting. They really allow for a really interesting storytelling. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of really silly stories. I think this is one of the games that I knew the game was really over the top. I knew the games were over the top, although that they're really serious at times. There's a lot of times where are really silly and really funny and everything, and this game really ramped up to 11 from what I've been told. This game really focuses on a lot of the silly stuff, but when it comes to the really serious stuff, or really Yakuza gangs and mafia and everything, you can really see it happening here. And again, it's really interesting, and I really love the way that they're able to do that, because they're able to handle both being serious and at the same time being really, really funny and really silly at the same time. And it just has a really good dynamic as well. The gameplay is interesting as well, something that I haven't seen in a while. The gameplay looks like originally it was a completely different style, and this one focuses more on doing a turn-based RPG, which obviously, if you like my games like Persona or Final Fantasy, it's a staple of RPG. If you ever played a game like that, you know that most of those games are challenging in that. And from what I've played so far, the game can be challenging at times. Actually, it really is a pretty deep, interesting game when it comes to that, because not only do you have these battles that you play. But there's also a lot of different equipment that you can do to it. There's so many battles as you are actually walking through the map in the different area. For example, Yokohama, which is one of the areas that you are for a good chunk of the game. You definitely encounter these different people, situations where people just attack you and things like that, and it can just be in the streets. You can just be walking and go into your mission or whatever. You can encounter random people that will fight you and everything like that. The gameplay overall, like I said, is really interesting because it merges really well with the silliness of the story, although there is a lot of elements where Ichiban perceives them as, you know, almost like villains of Dragon Quest or whatever, and they kind of almost change or morph into this different silly characters and everything. At the same time, Ichiban and everybody else just fighting with these silly weapons. You know, you can use like a massager, or you can use like really weird stuff to fight with them and everything, and that does add like a sense of like funny, but at the same time a sense of like silliness. And I don't know, it's really interesting. I've never played a game like this before, so in that sense, it just has its own unique taste. I never really thought I was going to enjoy this game as much as I'm doing. It's actually really funny, really interesting, and overall, I really want to encourage everybody to play it. If you haven't played it, if you're on the fence and you're a fan of RPGs, if you're a fan of things like Persona and Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, I think that this is really the game for you. If you haven't played it or touched it yet, it's strongly recommend that. It's a really good game. It is a RPG through and through. It's not just about the silliness, but it's really intricate at times. There's a lot of strategy you can do. There is buffs and debuffs. There is a lot of items that you can utilize. Everything that you think of an RPG is here, but obviously with the theme of being silly and being a Yakuza and everything like that. But at the same time, besides that, there is so much of an underlayer of like a good RPG in here. Honestly, this may be my RPG of the year, my JRPG of the year. They think this and Xenoblade Chronicles and Persona. I mean, I have played a lot of really good games this year. Really excited. Obviously, I'm not done with the game yet, and I'm still playing through it. This is a really long game. There's so many activities that you can do. This is one of the things that I actually haven't even touched base on. There's things like karaoke. You can do a lot of interesting side stories or side missions, as they call them. You can do all these different even again silly moments, silly quests that you can do, but things like going to eat food. You have this drinking links, which what they call them, which is kind of like a social link where you go and interact with them and develop a relationship with them, like a more deep friendship or whatever. There's all this different stuff going on in this game that you don't really think about it, and even when you're 20 hours in, there's just so much to unlock. There's so much to go through. The story is super good. You get serious at time, you get silly at time, you laugh, you cry. There's so many good moments in this game. I definitely encourage everybody to check it out. Overall, the performance on this game is also really good. The game looks really interesting. It's a combination between what you will expect from a Japanese developer, but at the same time, there are moments when you're just walking down the street in Japan and everything. I've visited Japan before, and every time that I'm walking through, this is literally what Japan looks like. I feel like I'm walking through the streets again, and it's really interesting that this game just is able to capture the essence of it. The street looks exactly like it. Everything is just so well crafted, so well done. The graphics are really good. I haven't encountered any bugs or anything like that. This game really just deserves all the praises it's getting. The music is fantastic as well. Performance wise, again, I haven't encountered much issues or anything like that. There's one thing that I do want to mention here, and it's two different things. One is the dub, which is what I'm using right now. It's pretty good. However, there's times where obviously the story doesn't have dub. It's just the text and everything like that. However, one interesting thing that happens is it looks like not everything was dubbed. For example, when you are having this conversation, sometimes they'll reply in Japanese, like Nani or Soka or something like that. They'll like reply with Japanese phrases and stuff instead of just having everything translated. That does bother me and kills the immersion for me. One of the other issues that I have is when they're in battle. Sometimes they're shouting back and forth and everything. Your characters speak English. They still converse in English or have these small little things that they say to the enemy in English. However, the enemy will curse at you and say things at you in Japanese. That really breaks the immersion for me, because I'm like in the middle of the heat of the battle and everything like that, and then somebody goes "Korra" or whatever, and you're like, dude, I'm like, it's just breaking off the experience for me. Obviously, this could be mitigated if you play the Japanese version. However, again, the dub is excellent. It's really good, and I want to praise just everybody that I worked on the team for the dub, because it's pretty good. Usually, I tend to play the games in Japanese, but I figured I will give him a try in English, since this being my first Yakuza game and everything. But yeah, really good experience so far. I deeply encourage everybody to check it out. This is definitely a must play if you haven't already. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. If you're new, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time.